when situations of mountaintop proportion come in our life, or are we going to lean to our own understanding? Well, Proverbs 3 gives us the remedy for that. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. So Saul chased David and pursued him to kill him. We read one time he pressed him so hard and chased him so hard, David hid down in a cave and backed up in there with some of his men, and Saul and his men were pressing hot. They were pursuing him just like a car chase, like the O.J. Simpson chase down the California highway. Okay? And I mean, they were behind him. And when he got up in that cave and was looking out, waiting for Saul to go away, the Bible said Saul came right there and stood in the open mouth of the cave. And David and his soldiers that were with him said, look, that's the king's robe. They said, reach out there and grab the king and grab him in here. Drag him in here. You can kill the king now. And David said that the Spirit said to him, touch not my anointing and do my prophet around. Wait a minute, Pastor Melvin. Wait a minute. We live in a mean world. You mean to tell me that when people are pursuing me, when people are coming after me, when they're chasing me like a dog, and I haven't done anything except try to help them, that you need me to keep my hands off of them? Yes! Let the Lord take care of them. Well, we go on. And by now, David is king of Israel. And he was a man, so says Acts 13, after God's own heart. And so David has now come full circle. He's been a warrior. He had won many battles. Because in 1 Samuel 18, he came back from his final victory under King Saul, and the women were out in the street dancing. They were now you talking about a party. The women said Saul has slain his thousands, but David has slain his tens of thousands. Good gracious alive. So he was a warrior in the kingdom. But then, sitting on the throne, ruling Israel with love and mercy and equity, his son got up in some size. And when I researched it this week, Absalom was 22 years old, wet behind the ears, when he decided it's time for me to be the king. And he got him some friends. Watch your friends. And they got over there to the little kingdom pub, and they start drinking the ale in the kingdom of Jerusalem. And his friend said, you ought to be the king. Your father don't respect you. Your father don't esteem you. Your father don't give you no kudos for all the hard work you do in the kingdom to make him look good as the king. You really need to be the one sitting on the throne. Beloveds, be careful. Be careful. Be careful to covet after what somebody else got. Because I've learned in my life, I'm going to be grateful for this little patch I got over here. And whatever else God want to give me in his own time, he'll give it to me. I don't have to be jealous of nothing that you have. Matter of fact, I need to celebrate whatever God gave you. Because I know if he can bless you, he can bless me too. They kept talking in Absalom's ear, and the next thing you know, Absalom got him a coup formed. A coup is a group set in motion intended to corrupt what is in natural order. And so he put that coup in motion, and those boys were meeting in private. Be careful, First Christian, when they call you to the private meetings. When they call you to the private telephone meetings. Be careful, because something could be stirring that you don't need to be in. And them boys got with Absalom, and they made a plan. They never stopped one moment to think about it. Absalom was trying to do harm to his own dad. The devil doesn't care how he used you to make a fool out of yourself. Don't you understand that the natural order of things says that a son is not going to try to kill his own father? But Absalom, the enemy, had him out there. And so when he was going through, the next thing you know, they were chasing David. And David found himself back in the same kind of situation he was in when he worked for King Saul. And he said, God, what in the world is going on? I serve you with everything that I have. I've been good to your people. I know I haven't lived a perfect life. Yes, God, I know that I killed Uriah and took his wife. But you forgave me for that because you took my son from me. And you told me that you weren't going to ever punish me for that again. As a matter of fact, you made me a promise, God, that forever my lineage was going to sit on the throne. So God, can you please explain to me what has gone wrong when my own son is trying to kill me? And David was running and having to hide from Absalom. Watch this though. When God makes us a promise, he will keep it. He is obligated to keep it because he is in covenant with us. God is in a binding agreement with us, and God cannot lie. So when trouble comes in your life and tries to mess with your mind, I want you to stretch your hands to God. And I want you to lay his promises before him. I want you to remind God of the terms of his contract with you. God's word can be given back to him as a reminder of what he promised. He promised us life and health and blessings. He never promised us that every day was going to be easy, but he did promise he would be with us and he would take care of us and the enemy would not prevail. We must stretch our spirit, soul, and body until it reaches God like David through prayer and supplication. And so David prayed. David remembered that to come to God correctly, he had to first recognize that he wasn't perfect. And that's exactly what he did. And David realized that I must make sure that my relationship with God is strong so that as I stretch my hands to God, I'll get a response. The hymn writer puts it this way: Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, Father, whither shall I go? And so, beloved, the stretching of our hands today out to God not only reminds God of his promises, but it reminds us of what God has already done. David is saying, I'm calling on you, God, because if you delivered me from the hands of Saul, surely you would deliver me from my son chasing me. If you delivered me from the lions and the bears, surely you will deliver me from this dilemma. God, if you showed me mercy when I took Uriah's wife and had him killed, surely, God, as I stretch out my hands to you today in humble submission to me, you will reach back for me and show me mercy and grace as you did in the past. And I want to close today with a story. I learned a story about a preacher who had been raised up from a poor background. This preacher was raised up very poor, didn't have anything. He said there were some days he couldn't even wear his shoes because they were just too messed up. But God allowed this little old preacher to grow up and find favor with those in high places. These persons of notable standing opened doors for the young man, affording him an opportunity to study religion, theology, and preaching in England at Oxford University. This was such a great honor because this little poor preacher had never been anywhere outside of his hometown. And the young preacher studied hard to learn and grow as a Bible scholar. As all universities do, there came a time for spring break, or what British families call holiday. And not having a lot of funds, the preacher decided to see the sights. He said, well, I've been here a whole year and I haven't had a chance to view any of the cathedrals, the great churches, of the museums, the art galleries. So that's what I'll do since I can't do a lot of traveling. And as he began to move around places like Westminster Abbey and St. Paul's Cathedral, and while he was visiting one of those famous sites, he saw some beautiful artwork. And he came across this wall. And the wall just seemed to stretch on forever and ever. And the wall had a beautifully painted mural on it. And on the mural, the man saw two villages. And in one village, at one end of the mural, the preacher saw people cleaning up in that village. What had been a battle scene. The preacher saw how badly the village had been left virtually destroyed. Very unclean, just simply destroyed. And the preacher noticed that on that mural, the people who were in the village had a certain look on their face that went far beyond sadness. He said that look on those villagers' face was the look of hopelessness. And the preacher was looking, and as he looked, his eyes moved all the way over to the other end of the mural. And he saw another village. He saw a village of people dancing and singing and celebrating most joyfully. He said the people in this village seemed to have plenty of everything that they needed. Their village was beautiful with flowers, and the landscape gave the preacher to know that these were the most happy and fulfilled people of anywhere. But just as the preacher was about to walk away from the picture, he noticed that right there in the middle of the mural was a little boy. The little boy was running towards the village where the devastation of the hopeless people were. And the people said to himself, while he was looking at that mural, son, you're running in the wrong direction. You need to turn around and run in the direction where the Life and Joy village is. But the preacher looked a little closer and he saw something else. The little boy had something in his hand. He was holding something, and his hand was stretched out. He had stretched out his hand with what looked like a very important document, a decree of some kind, an official notice. And the preacher tried his best. He got real close to the mural to see, could he figure out what is that, I wonder, that's in his hand. But he couldn't quite make it out, and it was rolled up so he couldn't see it. The little boy looked like he was trying so hard to get to the village without hope so he could deliver this most important document. Well, the preacher said, my goodness, what does all this mean? He was deeply moved by what he saw. What in the world is really going on in this picture, he asked. Just then, when he asked, the preacher saw one final piece in the mural. There was one more thing that caught the preacher's eye. Far out on the hill in the village of Joy and Peace, there stood a small white flag. That flag was waving in the wind. And he noticed that people were dancing around that flag. At that moment, the preacher understood what the mural meant. There had been a war in the villages, and the little boy was running to the village without hope to tell them that the war had ended. He had his hand stretched out with the official document in his hand declaring to the village that didn't have any hope that you can now have hope because the war is over. Well, beloveds, as I read this story about this preacher, I had a revelation about that little boy. My revelation of this story for you and me today was that the village without hope represents the world as it is today in its sinful condition. And the village of joy represents the kingdom of God in its fullness. And the little boy represents Jesus Christ. And when Jesus came down through 42 generations, when he came down to planet Earth, he came with his hand stretched out with a document in his hand to announce to you and I that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The war is over. And the next time you want to get all beat down because a coup has been formed to overthrow your life, think about the coup that was formed to kill Jesus. Next time somebody talk about you and you go home crying, somebody don't speak to you and you leave with your head bowed, think about the coup that was formed to kill Jesus. Religious leaders, I didn't say the mayor of the city, the preachers of the temple got together and said Jesus must die. And when they got through going to the government, telling the government to get rid of Jesus, the government looked at them like, y'all handle this. This is not our issue. This is a church issue. That's why you need to be careful who you talk to about First Christian. Because this church's issues have no business outside that door.